Hi, Rich the First Time DM, back for another walk around my neighborhood. I'm trying to get in before the rain. So, today's topic, figured I haven't done a player tip video in a while. So, I've got a new, I don't know if we're going to be playing a new campaign next week in my Friday game where I'm a player, or if we're going to be doing a bunch of one-shots, but we had to create a character. So, I decided to help you guys on how to make a character backstory. Character backstories are great. It is what establishes who you are, who your character is, where they come from, and what they do in the world. And it can influence how you act when you're playing a character towards the world and towards the other players. There are some key things to remember when creating a character backstory. First, you gotta start with your species and your class, because that will drive what your characters learned in his life, or in their life, up to the point where they have started adventuring. Were they half-elf, shunned by the elves where their parents live? Were they orc, living in a herd, roaming the wilds? Sorry, I did some tree work around here today, trying to avoid some branches. If they're a rogue, were they raised by the Thieves Guild? So you need to think about your species and your class. That should be your first driving force for your character's backstory. That establishes the bare minimum you need, because it gets you thinking how and who your character is. Next thing you should do is looking at the world map where you're going to be playing in. So you work with the DM for this if needed. If it's in a homebrew world, you need to figure out, where does your character come from? Is there an established city or town or village they can come from? Or do you want to create something new? Do you want to work with the DM and add to the world? Character backstories are great. As a DM, I love working with my players to flesh out my world using their characters to do it. Saves me the work. But it also allows us to create cool environments or cities or locations where the player can come from. Maybe they came from an island off the coast that I never thought of. Awesome, we can create it. So you need to know where your character comes from. This also drives how they act and how they interact with the world as well. Do they come from a city that hates tieflings, for instance, and there's a tiefling in your party? That can drive some awesome role play between you and the other player. So think of where specifically your player comes from. Next thing you should do, creating your character's backstory, is to establish your own NPCs, family members, friends, acquaintances, alliances. You can be very specific about certain things, but you also want to leave gaps. Don't make it so specific that it gives the DM no flexibility later on when it comes to trying to incorporate your backstory into the campaign. At a minimum, I like to, when I create my characters, I like to come up with immediate family, mother, father, siblings. Are they alive or dead? Are you going to pull the trope of my family was killed by goblins? That works. I have no problems with it. I don't know why people hate it, but it's out there for a reason. Are they alive? Was your family rich or poor? Were they well educated? Were they well traveled? All of that helps flesh out who your character is. And like I said, it provides points for your DM to work with or to incorporate. So what was your interaction with your family? Did your family get along? Or are you an outcast from the family? That's something to think about. So it all drives your character's bonds and flaws and allies. Always be thinking about how anything you put in your backstory, how it influences how you play the character, how they interact with others, whether it's the party, whether it's other NPCs, or interact with the world itself. One of the biggest things that you need to do for your character's backstory. Why are they joining an adventurer party? Why are they going out into the world and going into the Underdark? And why do they want to go hunt goblins and dragons and possibly get killed by beholders? The adventuring life is not an easy life. So why did your character join up with either the party or start adventuring? You need to know this because that is your driving reason for playing the game. D&D is a social contract. You sit down and you agree to take on the quests and go on it. But if your character has no desire to be in an adventuring party, why are you there? So there's reasons why they join. There's reasons why they are adventuring. So think of these. And the final piece is please don't have your character have a, holy avenger because he's got it from his father, or he's the king of this mighty ruling world already. That doesn't make sense from an adventuring standpoint. You start out as a level 1 character. You're barely better than the average person. You're not a king. You don't have some ungodly, powerful magic item that you got from your family. It just doesn't happen like that. So please don't put that kind of stuff in your backstory. If you bring that backstory to a DM, they will laugh and just totally ignore that piece. They will constantly just bypass you when you talk about it during the game. They'll probably tell you actually to change it because they're not going to do anything with it. Make your character an above average person. They have certain set of skills that suit an adventuring party. They're not the greatest warrior on the planet. They may eventually get there. That may be a goal of your character. But don't make it already have happened in your backstory. Even if you're starting out at level 3 or 5, your character will be a little bit better. But the backstory itself is still barely better than an average person set off into the world and had the ability to defend himself or themselves. So, it's not that hard to create a backstory. A page, maybe 2, is it. Don't come in with a 20-page backstory. That'll be too much, and the DM won't have anything any way to surprise you or to make it fit into the campaign if you've restricted it so much. So stick to a page. A couple paragraphs usually is all you really need. I've always come up with about a page and a half for my characters, trying to make it unique, not sticking to the common tropes, but the common tropes are great. You want to create a rogue because parents were killed and he was an orphan in the city and got in with the Thieves Guild, go for it. I did. One of my favorite characters I've ever played. It was a basic trope, but I loved it because the DM was able to work with it as well. So just remember that. You've got to be happy with the character you're playing. So sit down and come up with the backstory. The more you feel the backstory, the more it resonates within you, the more it will resonate at the table. The more your decisions will be based on the character and not you. It will show. The DM will know right away that you're playing to your character. If you're running a XP game, the DM will probably give you more XP for playing to your character. You know, if you're in a milestone game, the DM will give you inspiration for playing to your character, whether it's a flaw or a bond or a strength. So I know it sounds more complicated than it actually is. It's really not that hard. Come up with a character name, species and class you want to play. Roll up your stats. Make sure it works for the class you want to play. If not, change it. Go on the fly. If you roll stats, sometimes you just gotta save your fighter for the next time because you didn't roll very well. And then just think about where your character came from. Why is he now sitting in the tavern, covered in goblin blood, hoisting an ale and toasting the loss of a party member? Why did he choose that life? Why did she go off to learn spells at the Wizard's Academy? You know, the why is very important when you're creating a character's backstory. So hopefully that helps you a little bit, gives you some insight in how to create a character's backstory. I know it actually, I would love to sit here on this walk and break down how I would create my character's backstory, but I only have a couple minutes left. However, let's go ahead and create a backstory for my new character really quick. Show you how easy it is. So, he is an infernal tiefling. His name is Nulon. Nulon. Nulon is a monk, warrior of the elements monk. So, he's a tiefling, warrior of the elements. What can the backstory be for him? All right, I got it. He comes from elven parents. He was born tiefling for some reason. Some deal somebody back in his family made with some devil, probably. He was shunned by his elvish community, being a tiefling. So he went off by himself. Well, he came across a village of druids. The druids were one with the elements. Sometimes, you know. So let's say he fit in with this druid village, welcomed him in. So now they've been teaching him druid magic as a monk. So you get the warrior of the element style. Let's say these druids really deal with fire magic, fire elementals, so it fits right in with the infernal tiefling. So you can learn a couple spells they get, fit right in. He can learn druid craft. He can pick druid spells for a couple of the elemental things. So he sat and he learned with these druids, and for, let's say, a couple of years, now he wants to go out on his own. He's not happy with the hermit life in the woods. You know, he loves the druids, but it's time to go. So he heads off and just runs into an adventuring party out fighting something. And that's how he meets the party. You know, so right there we got his family. Got to come up with some names for them. Easy enough. FantasyNameGenerators.com. There you go. Come up with some names for his parents. Maybe a sibling. Maybe come up with the name of the druid village. And a couple druids. Names of his mentors. That's it. Right there is a tiefling's backstory for what works out well for a one-shot. Works well for a campaign. Of course, I'd flesh it out a little bit more. That was just a couple minutes worth of thinking, top of my head. So, sit down. Create characters in D&D Beyond and come up with backstories for them. It'll help teach you how to do it, and you'll get better at it as you go. I have about 50 characters in D&D Beyond. They each have a backstory in my head. So, just make the backstories. But leave room for your DM to use your backstory in the campaign. So, as always, like and subscribe really helps. Get really close to 200 subscribers as of this recording. And be nice to each other, accept each other, love each other. Have a good day.